Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We hope you are a subscriber or a supporter on Patreon. You can find us pretty easily on Patreon. All sorts of support levels, so pick the one that's right for you. They go from very cheap, where all you get is me, to very expensive, where you get entry to my E3 party. Check it out. Hope you can afford to do so. If you don't care to devote resources to supporting SIFTD.net, Shane does run some risk of shutting this down because he needs some more support. But we'll be on YouTube as long as we're on, and all I'm asking for in exchange is a shout out on Twitter. Let people know that you watch Pachter Factor and you like it, and you will be doing right by me. I'm at Michael Pachter. Okay, let's get into the questions. This week's first question from SIFTD from Gregor G. How do you think Switch will evolve in the future? Most Nintendo platforms don't get a second iteration apart from 3DS. Do you think there will be a Switch XL or something like that? You know, that's a really great question. And normally I would say Nintendo would probably not iterate, and I think you're right. But the concept of Switch XL makes a lot of sense. If the component costs of making the actual screen drop further, and they're going to, pardon me, they have to keep coming down, then, you know, if Nintendo can get away with making the thing a couple inches bigger, I think it's 6.5 inches or so right now, if they can get away with making it 9 and making it look more like an iPad size, that's just a better experience. So absolutely, if they can afford it. I think that the problem Nintendo faces is that they're a capitalist company. They are interested in making a profit. And if they're selling a Switch at $300, they're spending less than $300 making it. Trust me, if they were making it for less than $200, then the price wouldn't be $300, it would be lower. So their dilemma is, do we drop the price of the Switch to $200 when our manufacturing cost drops below $200, or do we make a bigger one and charge $300 for that? I think you're onto something here, because I enjoy playing the Switch on my lap. I think it's just very comfortable and it feels right. I know people who say, well, you got to keep it plugged in, it gets hot. I actually put a pillow on my lap and put it on the pillow, and I just feel good. I don't even notice if it's warm. I like it, so I think it actually works well. But 2 inches bigger, yeah, I'd like that more. So I don't know. I'm a sucker. I'm the guy who buys all shiny new objects. I just bought my wife an iPad Pro. I don't even know how big that bad boy is, but it's big. And she said, what's this for? And I said, well, your screen's cracked on your old iPad. And I figured $99 or $1,000. Let's spend $1,000. Yeah, so I bought her one. And she actually does like it. It's actually really cool. So yeah, I think that bigger is better. I think people will like bigger. I have not heard anybody complain about the Switch screen size. And again, it's very comfortable to hold. It feels right, but 2 or 3 inches bigger might feel even better. So Nintendo's much smarter about this stuff than I am. If they perceive that that will sell better and consumers will like it more, they're going to do it. So really an astute question. I think it's something we're going to see. Our next question comes from SIFTD from Pain of Demise. With the way people are blindly crowdfunding games, there's no guarantee that they will actually be released or be any good. Do you ever see publishers eventually going this route when dealing with new IPs or revivals of classic franchises? Could it result in more new IPs in the end? No, publishers aren't going to do that. You know, publishers, the value proposition for being a publisher is that you can fund these projects. So they don't need crowdfunding. They get paid, the big bucks, the guys who run the publishers, because they make the capital allocation decisions. They decide how much capital that they have to devote to each different game, and then they raise the capital, whether they do it from current cash flow or they borrow or they issue more stock. So, no, I think that crowdfunding is for guys who are talented and have limited resources, like Brian Fargo or Tim Schafer, and they'll crowdfund their game. And the reason that you blindly fund those guys is because they're freaking great, and especially Schaefer. I mean, Schaefer, I can't remember anything that guy's ever made that I didn't, just enjoy immensely. He makes, here's the right word, delightful games. Even his dark ones are delightful. He is a funny dude. And so, no, I don't think the publishers are going to do that. The more new IPs in the end, there's a lot of developers out there. American McGee. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there who had a ton of success a long time ago who are still making games, and there are a lot of new IPs. I think that probably the better model is the one, this low cost $8-10 million kind of development model, and you're seeing a lot of games like Cuphead made for Xbox, or Fat Princess that was made for Sony a few years ago. They're not expensive games, and you're going to keep getting more and more of those. EA made an inexpensive game, but they're kind of promoting it like this is a real deal. But the game looked really fun, and publishers don't need crowdfunding. They can find the money. So we're going to get more new IPs just because of indie games available on the consoles, and because of things like PUBG that are so successful that there's going to be emulation and more people trying it. I mean, the truth is that an Activision or an EA or a Take-Two, they don't want to make a game that sells 1 million units. So it really takes a lot for these guys to get interested in anything. So no, and sure, there's a lot of JRPG type games, and you can revive a lot of those old franchises. But the truth is, they wouldn't be that good if they only spend $3 or $4 or $5 million making them. So, maybe. I just don't think the Western publishers have any interest in doing this. I mean, do you really want to play Earthworm Jim? You might. Maybe it would be fun.
There's a new Bubsy game coming.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh.
It looks bad.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. Next question from SIFTD from Mr. Fox. Do you think there will be another handheld to succeed the 3DS? I know it doesn't make much sense with Switch already on the market, but it's Nintendo we're talking about here. It already tried something like this with DS, DSi, 3DS, new 3DS. I think the Switch is a handheld, so I don't think so. If anything, I could see Nintendo making a Switch Mini and a Switch Maxi. So I could see the Switch XL and I could see a Switch Mini. And if they could get the price of the Switch Mini down where the Joy-Cons aren't detachable, it doesn't, hook up to your television, it doesn't have a docking station, it is literally just a handheld Switch, and the Joy-Cons are permanently attached to the screen, so essentially it's a 3DS, but they call it a Switch Mini and play Switch games. That I think will happen. So I will actually predict that that's going to happen. I just don't know what the cost of that is, because the guts of a Switch are actually pretty complicated and pretty impressive. I mean, the Switch is a PS3. It's a pretty sophisticated console. But if they can get the cost down to where they could sell a Switch Mini with built-on controllers, Joy-Cons, and get it down to $150 or $199, I think they'll do that. So that will be your next handheld. Write that down. Okay, our last question this week from SIFTD, from NeOJD. Pack. It's respectable, it's a great word, that you did this and Pach Attack for so long. Huh. In case Pachter Factor ends, what have been your favorite memories of doing both shows? Oh, easy. My favorite? My favorite memory ever was the Pach Attack that I did in this room when Marcus Beer sat on the floor and heckled me the whole time, and then he and I went out onto my electric boat and drank scotch and cruised around the bay and kept the episode going for another hour. That was the most fun I've ever had. Honestly, my favorite memory ever. As far as just doing the show in general, probably the best memory was when the Game Trailers guys came to me and actually approached me about doing Pach Attack. And the first one, they wanted me to do scripted, and they were willing to put effort in and write scripts. And so my favorite memory is when I did it for about 10 seconds and I go, I can't read from a script. I got to do this ad lib. And they were like, no, it's got to be scripted. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. And so, we changed it on the fly, and that was really fun. And I guess my third favorite memory is when, Pachter Factor was born, because Pach Attack, was owned by Game Trailers. Game Trailers was sold a couple of times. It's now owned by IGN, of all people. And, when they first approached me about doing the show, I didn't want to have anything to do with them because I didn't like the way they treated my Game Trailers friends, the guys who bought Game Trailers. And when I let it go for a year and a half, and then when Shane had this idea and said, hey, let's revive it, that was cool. So who knows if we'll keep doing it. I mean, if people don't support SIFTD on Patreon, we're not going to keep doing it. And I'll probably have another year or 2 or 3 or 10 hiatus until somebody else comes along, and the somebody else might be Shane in another iteration. But yeah, I do it for fun, and I guess I could be a YouTuber and do it myself, but I'm just not that organized. I'm just not. I don't have a camera. I don't want to do it on a webcam. I don't want to deal with sound quality. I don't want to edit. I don't want to solicit questions. So Shane does all that stuff tirelessly. And if you don't support him, then this whole year is going to come down to whether the Steelers win the Super Bowl. And the odds of that are not very high. So if we don't see the Patreon signups, this is it. So with that, I'm going to thank you guys for your many, many years of loyal support, and look forward to coming back next week. But if not, in a couple of years, someplace else. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor. Sign up on Patreon, please. I think the most fun I have on these shows is every 8 months or so, I get into a NeoGAF battle, and that's actually fun. You Xbots out there, you take everything personally, and you Nintendo fanboys, and you, what do you call them? I forgot, PS clones or something?
I've never even heard of
Nintendo drones, they're called.
Yeah, that's fun, yeah.
And I forgot what the PlayStation, Nintendo drones, Xbots, and I forgot the PlayStation fanboys are called. PlayStation fanboys. You guys all take everything so damn personally, and you take everything so damn literally. So I got into a Twitter fight recently because some clown said that I said on Pachter Factor that nobody would buy the Xbox One, and then One X, excuse me. And he called me on that because I said I thought they'd sell 1 million units. And he goes, how can they sell 1 million units when you said nobody buy it? And I'm like, do you literally think I meant 0 sales, 0 units? Like, my God. So my favorite memory of all of this last 10 years of doing this is it never ceases to amaze me how stupid some people are and how they take everything literally and they're insulted by everything. But the flip side of that is I have so many people who are so kind and who reach out, who will approach me at E3 and ask for a photograph, who are really polite and complimentary on Twitter. And the nicest memory of all is being recognized. Thank you guys very much. It means you're paying attention. And if you can do anything back to me, give me a shout out on Twitter and thank me. Because again, this might be the last episode of Pachter Factor ever.